everybody needs some love. And when that energy is directed to them, we're doing that. And so the FLFE service at 500 level, you can put anywhere. It's just a blessing of love. It's just a continual blessing of love, 24/7.
Hello, Judah family. Welcome. I'm so glad that you're here. This is a super special video that we are creating for you. It's not just a video, it's an experience. So go ahead and enter into the experience by opening your heart and spirit for what's going to come forth. I am so very, very pleased to have a part of the Judah family, a very integral part, and our business partners, Focus Life Force Energy. And I have with me here today, Jeffrey Stegman and Clayten Stedman. And they are the owners and founders of Focus Life Force Energy, which we will heretofore reference as FLFE. And when I love these guys so much, I had been connected with the service and had the FLFE service for a long time before Judah came around. So I like to imagine, and I'm quite certain that the energy, the atmosphere that they provided to our home was a part of Judah's coming and being a part of our lives. And in the beginning of our time with Judah, we asked Judah about this FLFE. And Judah began to prophesy about these two gentlemen that you're getting ready to meet. And Judah said that these two guys are the Wright Brothers of consciousness, like Orville and Wilbur Wright were to inventing the airplane, putting humanity in the air. Think about that. Two guys, Orville and Wilbur Wright, they managed to revolutionize our entire lives by putting us in the air and giving us flight for all of humanity. And so Judah said that these two guys, Jeff and Clayten, are the Wright Brothers of consciousness. And that got me so stoked. I don't think that was an overstatement. I think what these guys are doing is inventive, creative, and can be globally effective to raise our consciousness. A lot of folks that we encounter that feel that they're a mismatch vibrationally to their home, to their partnership, in their workplace, maybe with their parents. And so here's the question that came. It said, "Thank you, Judah and Angie. I'm now wondering if those who think positively outweigh negativity. I've heard this, but when I see myself working so hard on staying positive, while my spouse keeps his head in watching and listening to negative things on television and in media, I wonder, are we canceling each other out?" And so I feel like this, that there are a lot of people struggling with this. There's folks out there that they're doing so much in the way of working towards surrender and elevating their consciousness, letting go of their ego structures, letting go of things that aren't serving them. And then they're in relationships or situations that aren't supportive or maybe they're supportive, but they seem to be polarized or very opposite from what they want. And they're wondering, am I making a difference here? Are they canceling me out, or am I canceling, what's going on here?
Well, I'd say that the Hawkins map tells us that positive thoughts are, logarithmically more powerful than negative thoughts. So that compensation factor Clayten mentioned, if you're holding a loving, disposition, you're compensating not just for that one person, you might be compensating for 100,000 people or more. So that's the power of rising in consciousness and this being in this loving zone. Now in FLFE, we've seen people come in and often they don't tell their spouse they've turned it on.
Right.
And they don't tell their kids, and they see what happens. And we get story after story where people who have been stuck in patterns for a long time, might be in front of the news every day, or they've got some kind of pattern, bad habit, and I'd like to break this habit, but they never do. That in that unconditional love zone, that parts of them start to just automatically come up for healing.
Mm-hmm.
And with all that life force energy, chi, prana there, and we also have support for the meridians to clear blockages.
Mm-hmm.
And so that clearing of blockages sometimes just opens people up to just sort of lift their head up and look around and just start to have a different appreciation for what's around them rather than whatever habit they've been stuck in.
Yeah. And I just have to say, when Chuck and I started on FLFE, and a few days in, Chuck said, I don't know, I can't tell any difference. What do you think? And I said, but we haven't fought. We haven't fought in days. And when I really thought about it, when we turned it on, we literally quit arguing once it was turned on. And we're in our second, I'm in my second marriage with Chuck, and I came straight out of a really difficult relationship. So I had a lot of ego baggage. I had tons. Oh my gosh, I don't know how I lugged all that stuff around all these years, but I had a bunch, and so Chuck and his presence and his level of consciousness was constantly provoking my stuff and my garbage. So there was a lot of fighting, and wow, that's huge to me. If to have the FLFE service, I would spend my last penny on it for that kind of peace and that kind of resolve. And for whatever reason, the service seemed to help me particularly, just let go of things, just let them go. And yeah, I'd love to hear anything you guys have to share about that, because I think this is a big thing for folks. Share with me about how they can use it in their home and how they can use it at work. If it's possible, is there a way that they can have it at work or when they're on the go or traveling? Because I think this is a huge thing, is a lot of people are in situations where they don't have full autonomy or authority over their environments, but they need and want that protection of high consciousness. And talk a little bit about what that, like, how do you know what places and properties and things you have spiritual authority over, and how you can use FLFE to support that?
Well, there's an old saying, you can't solve problems at the level that you created them at. Right? That's an Einstein quote. I might be paraphrasing it. So if you are on FLFE service and your level of consciousness goes up, maybe it's not 30 points, maybe you're pretty high. Maybe you only go up 10 points. You're still going to experience the world from 10 to the 10th power, more perspective. And even people, of our age, I don't think we're all north of, we'll say 50 or better.
For yourself. No, I'm just
we've been on the path for a long time, and we still struggle. And if we're coming out of a difficult situation, we may still be a loving person overall because of the enormous difference between being at 600 in a meditation or 700 in a meditation and being, high most of the day, but there's an hour of the day where we're just not in a good space. So we can have a pretty high level of consciousness and still carry baggage and struggle. Doesn't mean you're going to be at peace all the time if you're over 500, just the way the averages work. So that would be the first thing about changing yourself or changing the situation. The other thing that came to mind is, if you're in a situation at home where somebody is playing the television a lot, which is a pretty caustic influence most of the time. Most media is not positive, and those thoughts go into the environment. Now, FLFE cleans them out 1,000 million times a second, right? But they still have an effect.
Yes.
And so you can do things like you can invite the person out to do something together, just go for a walk. I mean, there's lots of practical things like that, where if the person's stuck there, you can create something that's more interesting for them than what they're doing. Out of an act of compassion and personal salvation, I would say. The other thing is, let them be loving in the way that they're loving. Mm-hmm. Maybe they're a bit of a redneck, and going fishing with their buddies, or doing wherever they do, is the way that they find love in the world. So, yes. Let people be loving in the way that they're loving. And that's
exactly
likely partially what attracted you to them in the first place. Mm-hmm. And just one more thing before I pass it to Jeff. In terms of spiritual authority and knowing what to do, our default is always, go directly to Creator, the one creator of all that is. I mean, you have the Judah channel, Anjie, but not many people can hear guides as well as maybe you and I can. You just go to God and ask, what's your will for me in this situation, Lord? What's your will? And please give me the strength to carry it out. Mm-hmm. And usually the will of God is to create more love in your life.
Yes.
And, some situations need to be changed, and I'd really work hard at something. The older I get, the more I'm willing to work on myself and the situation around me before I want to change something like that, especially a primary relationship.
Yes. Mm-hmm. Yeah. And I've found that many times when I work with people, Judah will encourage them, just commit, 90 days to look inside mm-hmm. your own heart and surrender and let things just work themselves out. And I think in relationships, as we focus on our own heart, looking at what's inside, surrendering it, giving ourselves over to more love, it just seems like the relationships fall in place. And the people that are supposed to be with us stay. And the ones that aren't meant to, they move on. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Well, and the way that we look at consciousness and, whether we have authority to raise consciousness for someone else or create an environment that's higher for them, we just think about blessing. Mm-hmm. If you bless someone, you send them love, that's a positive thing for everybody. Mm-hmm. Everybody needs some love. And when that energy is directed to them, we're doing that. And so the FLFE service at 500 level, you can put anywhere. It's just a blessing of love. It's just a continual blessing of love, 24/7. The higher levels, the standard services at 550 on the Hawkins map is where it starts. Somebody in the environment needs to know that it's on for hydration primarily. Okay. Because when you've got more chi, more prana, life force there, the body takes it up, the innate intelligence knows what to do with it, and healing's happening, upgrades are happening. And so the body needs more water. Good. And so as long as somebody's there, just, hey, you thirsty? Here's a glass of water. You want something to drink? And just kind of keeping on top of that a little bit. It's fine to have people in the environment that don't know that it's on.
Yeah. And I just want to share a couple of stories here, for everybody that's listening about the service. One is I had a young woman, a mom, who had a young adult son who was really, really struggling. He was in high school, latter years, just being ostracized and bullied a lot, completely isolated from any sort of friendship. He was really having a hard time. And so he's feeling really blue at home, unmotivated, staying in his room all the time. And so we did our session with Judah. And of course, we can't be other people's saviors, right? We can love them and that's it. And it's, I think, harder for the moms and grandmas to watch kids suffer, even young and older children. But I recommended FLFE to her because the young man was living in her home. I felt like he's under her spiritual authority. It's her home. And she put the service on. And within a few minutes after turning it on, the young man came down into the kitchen, talked to his mom for a few minutes, and offered to take the laundry upstairs and put it away. And that sounds like a really small thing, but I'm telling you, for this young man and this mother, this was really a miracle. And so she was absolutely thrilled. And another thing that I'll say as a mom, I have 3 young adult kids, and my oldest has 3 children of her own. And it is my absolute joy to give as a gift to my kids FLFE, and they all are thrilled to have it. And we talk about, you know, how it impacts them and how to take care of themselves with the service on, drinking water and all that. But I feel great laying down my head at night to know that they have that atmosphere of unconditional love around them. It feels so good. And I'll have to admit, there's some egoic guilt in there too. You know, moms, we have this whole package of guilt. I woulda, coulda, shoulda done this and that for them. So it assuages that little bit of guilt in there too about all that I messed up. You know, I should pay for therapy for them too. That FLFE is a lot cheaper than therapy and probably a heck of a lot more effective. So my son, I have it on his phone because, you know, he's young and he's on the go all the time. He's probably not at home that much. And then my others, they have it on their house, and that feels so good to me. I love giving that to them. And then the other story that I wanted to share was about my mom recently went into a nursing home facility. And when she first got there, oh, it was just insanity. The situation was so bad. We had to pick a facility that wouldn't have normally been our choice because she was a COVID patient. And so I went in to visit her on one of the first visits, and her roommate is a really precious soul, was super struggling, ranting and raging a lot on some pretty nasty medications that were causing her to be kind of out of her mind. And my poor mom was just shaking and quaking all over. She was so nervous. So I just immediately began praying during the visit. I turned on my FLFE on my cell phone, and things started to calm down in the room. And I drew the curtain between the two of them and just invited in peace. And so when I went home that night, things were a little better, but I knew it had to change. And I laid my head down in the middle of the night. I was still thinking about her and praying. I asked Judah, what do I do? And Judah said, use your own teaching that we've given you, which one of Judah's teachings is about imagination meditation, using your imagination to create a different outcome. So I just began imagining this woman, the roommate, leaving. It was just leaving with a blessing. And so the next morning I got up and I thought, okay, I'm going to go talk to the administrator and ask, you know, if my mom can be in a different situation with a different roommate or by herself. And I didn't even realize that, you know, Spirit had already mitigated the situation completely through the meditation I'd had in the middle of the night. And so when I walked into the administrator's office, I shared a little of the situation. I said, could you do something for my mom different? She said, oh, wait a minute. She said, her roommate's leaving today. Oh, wait a minute. In fact, we've already called the driver, and the driver's on the way to get her and take her home. And so I walked down the hall, and sure enough, as I walked into my mom's room, the roommate had everything already packed up, and I was able to send her off with a blessing and tell her congratulations on going home. And my mom, from that point on, had a room to herself. And when I left that day, I called FLFE. I said, I need FLFE on my mom's nursing home, please. And you guys took care of it right away. And I immediately felt better. And I want you to know, we got even that facility even got more miracles after that. It's a huge changeover in the staff, and a brand new administrator was brought in, and she began whipping things into shape. And people were called into accountability and began to serve the folks there with a lot more love and integrity.
Yeah,
Wow,
high
that's
consciousness
wonderful.
fields, it's amazing what they can do. It's beyond the rational mind's understanding, Jeff. We have hundreds of stories like that. Now, not all of them are that direct and immediate, but we've heard hundreds and hundreds of them.
I believe it.
Yeah, some with depression as well in younger folks. We've had 3 or 4 of those that have come to the fore, and probably many more we don't know about. We had a customer in Sweden. So we have customers all over the world now, I think from 85 countries. And this customer in Sweden got on with us and told us a story. He works in a school system there. I think he's a counselor. And he had a young boy that he was working with who just was withdrawn and was seen to be getting worse. Wasn't participating, with the other kids. He didn't want to do sports, and he just wouldn't even raise his eyes. He just was really, really suffering. And the man, the boy carries his cell phone just like everybody else. And he put FLFE on his phone. Mm-hmm. And the transformation over the next month to 6 weeks that he told us about was just astounding. I mean, the boy started coming out of his shell. He joined the sports team. He had friends. He was talking to people in the cafeteria instead of sitting by himself. I mean, he really could observe such a difference in that low energy depression that the boy had, where he just flowered.
I love that. Tell us about that, because one of the things I love about FLFE is it's so affordable. And I know that if I was really, really struggling after I paid my basic bills and fed myself, FLFE would be number one on my list, because I believe that it can create an atmosphere of abundance as well.